2 minutes.
So we have our annual report. It's cool. I'd like this to be named. Really?
Yeah, he added like this huge garage.
Good.
Went
Hey, Janet,
to
how are
see
you?
Sam and Andy's at
That's probably pictures of
Bob Thomas and Ed Brantley.
I'm just the,
John.
I'm the helper.
Yeah.
I heard David can just do anything like with this.
Oh, and this weather has not been
Well, she thinks so.
helpful.
Jen and I were in the office today looking at that contract.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. To see when it's
Son, he needs to start taking
Went to the inauguration.
his allergy medicine sooner than later with these. It's,
I didn't really read it. I just kind of, they're
well, the
in their last
crocuses
5
were
years.
blooming in my friend's in her front yard.
No, they can renew again in 18.
Yes.
Mid-January.
Freeze over. Do they just freeze over when it gets too cold?
We've got bulbs
Yeah,
coming
there's
up in our
nothing
yard.
we can do
Yeah.
about it.
Green coming up.
Just seem like they want to.
Darnell go up. Listen to our weather like that. Wish we would just leave it
Global
alone.
warming.
At that
I'm
point,
not a big fan of Trump,
and then this morning,
I like that he's got freaking media on their ears.
he emailed me.
He's just driving them crazy. I'm
Which
loving every
they
minute of
really
it.
need.
Yes, they do.
Accurate. This is a
Co-locators.
It's a scary thing. How they come
I'm not
and take over
figuring,
your
I'm not
phone.
gonna listen to him for the next 4 years. I'm just gonna watch what he
Cost
does.
housing and
Because I can't listen to him. Of course, I
One of
couldn't
those
listen
not
to Obama
I
either,
think they
so
could take over,
that hasn't changed.
but I didn't know they could make you build.
Yeah. Make all your neighbors happy.
At 7 o'clock.
that's what they
I
didn't
would
talk
like to
about.
change the name of
They
this.
have one.
But you see developers, if they get turned down,
Pipeline easements.
Yes.
housing
Come in
developers,
over
they
town.
come in, they bring HUD in.
Just try.
Top of your head?
On the whole side of it.
And I missed that picture.
Me too, probably. I didn't get in a whole lot of them.
Oh, you're
Or
there.
where you,
Oh, I
Is
did
that you?
think.
Yeah.
where you curve
What you got?
to go to face the house.
Made the front page,
That whole
wow.
square.
Oh, really?
I didn't do it.
I hated I missed the Everett Road ribbon cutting. Were you there for that?
Ever so often?
And there's a whirly thing.
That was the road I thought, the road that
That once a
ended
week
me up here.
Once a week?
That's where it all
Seriously?
comes back
And if
to,
it's
yes.
not spinning,
That's the critical.
I'll ask her.
Is there anything for
I
help?
think it's time.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. This is the second meeting of this board for this year. We will start by rising for invocation tonight to be given by Reverend Don Thomas of First Farragut United Methodist Church. After that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
As a previous resident of Farragut, but now pastor of First Farragut United Methodist Church, and my family, my son and daughter-in-law, and my grandchild has some artwork out in the foyer there, and I'm a retired Navy Reserve chaplain, so I feel a deep connection to the town of Farragut, and please offer this prayer. Let us pray. Empowering God, you honor this community with these elected and appointed officials, staff members, community volunteers, employees, and involved citizens of the town of Farragut. However challenging are the issues and tasks, bless these leaders and citizens with a tenacious, bold spirit, overcoming obstacles and penetrating any barrier that would keep our community from flourishing. And let the children's art in the foyer remind us of the values of heart and soul you would have us uplift above all. The grace of energy, beauty, sensitivity, and compassion. Grant to us all the strength, the wisdom, and the inner conviction to make it so. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda. It's rather short.
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is the mayor's report, and under this category, we're going to hear a progress report from Farragut Business Alliance. Herc?
Please don't confuse me with the federal government in any way, shape, or form. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The report's been distributed. I believe everyone was able to get a copy, so I was just going to kind of hit high points, but I'm certainly available for any questions following that. The last half of 2016 has been a period of transition for the Farragut Business Alliance, with the resignation of its founding executive director in August and the search for her replacement. In November, we hired Stephen Krempaski, who's here with me tonight. Officially came on board November 3rd and immediately began work on FBA activities, specifically Light the Park and the 2016 Shop Farragut Holiday Campaign. In addressing some of the bullet points from our Memorandum of Understanding, one of the items that we had looked at doing for this fiscal year were two what we were calling on-site location-centered mini-events. Again, due to the resignation of our previous executive director and the time committed to the executive director search, we had postponed those. We were planning on doing one in the first half and one in the second half. We're still committed to trying to get one into the second half of the year, but we're also looking at moving around some of the other events, which I'll touch on momentarily. Some of the other things that we had talked about were adding businesses, adding five businesses per month to our online directory. Since November, we've been able to add 12 businesses to that online directory, in addition to making numerous corrections with various changes in email addresses and other contact information that's required. In terms of Shop Farragut exposure and involvement, the deals and event pages of the FBA website were filled with upwards of 40 offers during the Shop Farragut period. Currently, about 24 postings remain following the actual Shop Farragut period and still are available on the mobile app. Also during this period, we unfortunately had the resignation of one of our board members, but I'm very excited to announce, and in the actual report that we sent, this individual had not accepted board membership, but has since accepted, that Nadeem Jabran of First Watch will be coming onto the board. So he'll be joining us at our next board meeting, and I think he'll bring a lot of value there. He's very anxious to get involved and get engaged. In terms of our social media presence, which has been one of the ways that we've really tried to focus our attention, in October of 2016, we launched an Instagram account, as we were encouraged to do based off trying to attract a younger demographic. Also, with our social networking presence, in the fourth quarter of 2016, our total reach, which includes exposures in front of social network users, was 8,274 during the month of December alone, highlighted greatly by the Light the Park event. An additional 724 people were reached due to the photo gallery that we created for that event, and there were about 1,813 photos viewed and about 111 social network users engaged with likes and reactions. And I'm not the most technical savvy person when it comes to likes and reactions, but that's what they tell me they did. So one thing that we did this year that was really exciting is we participated with the sponsorship with the Farragut Half Marathon event in October, and with an online photo gallery for participants, which generated 2,181 people reached, 369 reactions, and 1,845 photo views of the Shop Farragut website and app, because they had to go to the app to see their pictures that were taken at that event. So it gave us a lot of exposure. Since early November, Steve has sent out a half dozen targeted emails to business lists and for what we call the holiday MailChimp to existing FBA general lists, spotlighting the Light the Park event and announcing the arrival of the Shop Farragut program. Let's see. In particular, talking about events that have occurred over this period of time, Light the Park took place at Founders Park along Campbell Station Road on Monday, November 29th, beginning at 6 p.m. Wanted to take a moment to recognize Town of Farragut Parks and Recreation staff for their outstanding decoration work and the event coordination. We estimate approximately 800 people were in attendance, which we feel exceed slightly previous year's attendance, in particular 2015, and notwithstanding the weather that day. Additional parking was generously provided by Pastor Mark Steinbach and Westgate Christian Fellowship Church. The event, we were able to generate about $4,600 in cash sponsorships from entities such as TDS, Costco, Southeast Bank, First Utility District, the Shrimp Dock, and the Knoxville Academy of Music, with in-kind contributions from Costco and hot beverages provided by First Watch Cafe. During the event, we had over 100 Instagram photos of attendees, primarily children and their families, and over 70 of them were posted to Facebook and on the FBA website, creating much what they would call residual internet chatter. We had about 50 businesses participate in the Shop Farragut campaign. That's a slight reduction of about 8% from the previous year, and we attribute most of that from the fact that we were getting a later start this year due to the transition with the executive director. FBA did financially support the 17 days and counting publication, including in the December 8th edition of the Farragut Press, with a $3,000 commitment to underwrite the cost of that advertisement, which allowed 14 area businesses to participate in that advertising by reducing their costs. We made a significant change. Historically, the Farragut Food and Wine Festival has been held in the fall. Typically, that would create a little bit of competition with the Taste of Turkey Creek event. So due to the transition period that we were going to, we have decided to move the event to May 5th, which will become a kind of a first Friday event. So May 5th is just an example for 2017. But we really like the move to the spring. We feel like it not only separates the events, it gets us away from the Taste of Turkey Creek. But one thing we're really excited about is we've reached out to the Dogwood Arts Festival Committee, and we're trying to make this event, which will be some type of first Friday event each year in May, kind of a conclusion celebratory event to conclude the Dogwood Arts Festival, which hopefully will attract people from throughout Knox County and other surrounding counties to our Farragut Food and Wine Festival. Obviously, this also is creating some need to revamp some other items in our schedule. So we're looking at flip-flopping our Art in the Park event and moving that to the fall, most likely to occur on a Sunday in September. So for this fiscal year, it may fall into the following fiscal year, but we feel like that'll be a better date for the event. And Sunday seems to be a good day because we're not conflicting with other school events. Just some other activities that have taken place since Steve came on board. We have moved, we were leasing a storage unit for some reason in Lenore City. It's now being leased in Farragut. And we've also done some consolidation on our cell phones to reduce expenses. And Steve's been very gracious in attending several ribbon cuttings and making plenty of visits to area businesses. We also, in recognition of Farragut's state championship, purchased 5 30-second Shop Farragut promos during the state championship game coverage. So with that, I think that kind of covers briefly what we've concluded in the last several months. Again, one of the great challenges has been having to go through an executive director search. Did not know that was going to happen when I became president. Welcome to the new year. So I'll entertain any questions if you have any. So.
Anybody have a question?
Yeah, that was a pretty impressive roster of activities and accomplishments. I didn't get your name. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Herc Ligdis with I work for Southeast Bank here in Farragut.
Okay.
And he's the president of the FBA.
Got that.
I've got a question concerning the program of work document. Was that put together by committee, or did one person put that together?
That was put together by the entire board.
Okay. I remember when I first saw it, it was, I don't know, daunting. I looked at that and I said, how can you all accomplish everything? I'm hoping that you take time to look at what's working, and if something's not working, cut it out. I mean, that's up to you. These are just
Sure.
guidelines and not something you have to achieve, from what I understand. So
I view it as being a document that's a work in progress. I mean, some of the things that were built into that document were, in essence, test cases. For instance, the mini events that we're looking at, we'd never done that before. So this was an opportunity to try something new that we had not done before, to see if it's a better use of not only the efficiencies we can get, but brings more lift to the businesses that it supports. So again, I envision the document being massaged, for lack of a better term, on an annual basis, based off what seems to be working well. And again, one of the things we learned early on is the social media world changes so quickly. We did not have an Instagram account, and if you're going to attract that generation between their early 20s and into the early 30s, and you're not on Instagram, they're not going to get your message. Twitter and Facebook is their parents' generation social media, not their generation social media. So we're having to adapt on a constant basis.
Thank you. One of the things I'm also excited about is you have here at least 2 locations where you want to have many events, and I'm all for that. And the EDC's got a meeting coming up next week, and then the committee on food trucks is going to be meeting, I think, a week after that, and we're going to be discussing that further. And I'd like to see that happen, but maybe instead of 2, even expanded going forward. So anxious to have some discussions on that going forward.
And I think, I think we felt like targeting those events to smaller markets to support those businesses, in particular those centers, would be a really good way to bring lift immediately to those businesses, and therefore get them more engaged and involved. So I agree.
One last thing, it just occurred to me during the course of this your discussion. The Farragut Fall 5K, which is kind of a premier event of the Farragut West Knox Chamber of Commerce, seems to have lost some of its luster, and I think the turkey trot maybe is eclipsing it somewhat. I wonder if that's something, because Farragut Business Alliance has done such a great job of putting on events, if that's something that maybe you could partner with the Farragut West Knox Chamber to see if we can't bring that back and make it into the kind of premier event that we like to showcase the town.
Well, I think we're committed to working with all the organizations in town to promote the town of Farragut. So I think we would certainly entertain conversations how we could work together on that. The idea with all these events, in particular what we did with the half marathon event this year, was try to focus the participants. And in many cases, and we were able to get a lot of good research on the event itself and track where these people that were registering were coming from. And a lot of them are local in the sense that they're Knox County and immediately surrounding counties. The vast majority, I would estimate probably upwards of 80%. They're not traveling too far, but this is an opportunity to expose them to businesses they may not be aware in Farragut. So I think opportunities to kind of co-brand, for lack of a better term, would be well served.
Work with Renaissance and the businesses that are out there in that area.
Correct.
You realize the Farragut West Knox Chamber is currently going through an executive director search as well, so there's some new blood coming in and maybe some new ideas with it. So certainly an avenue to investigate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Good evening.
The next item is Citizens Forum. Anybody signed up?
No, sir.
Then we move to approval of minutes of meeting from January 12th.
I reviewed the minutes and found them to be in order and moved for their approval.
Second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have to abstain. I wasn't here. Right?
Next item is business items, and there's one item, approval of town supplemental retirement plan amendment.
Good evening. We've heard about the town supplemental retirement plan a couple of times the last couple of months, and this just came up on the radar recently. The state of Tennessee has changed its law regarding qualified domestic relations order, or QDROs. And therefore, we have to do, for lack of a better term, housekeeping in our document. A qualified domestic order is a judicial order entered as part of a property division in a divorce or legal separation that splits the retirement plan or pension plan by recognizing joint marital ownership interest in the plan. Our plan was developed or passed by the board in 2012, and we have added an article to the plan. It's Article 7, Miscellaneous Alienation, and the change allows that upon receipt of a QDRO order, the town administrator or designee, that'd be me, shall follow the proposed procedure in order to avoid the named alternative payee, the spouse, a portion of the actuarial equivalent value of the employee's vested accrued benefit. Now, with this change, it creates a ripple effect in other areas of the document. I think you saw it because it's highlighted in red in the document that I gave you. So I'm recommending that you approve this amendment to the Town of Farragut Supplemental Plan to allow for quadro payments and to establish specific procedures to use when responding to a quadro court order. Other questions?
So it looks like that we had a section in there for this, and they've just kind of clarified it?
We have changed it.
Okay.
The state law previously did not allow a spouse, if they're in a case of a divorce, to claim any portion of a state or local government employee. Now they can.
Everybody okay with this?
And like basic housekeeping.
I move to approve the amended town supplemental retirement plan and qualified domestic relations order procedure.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item is ordinances. We have two. The first one is second reading, ordinance 16-26, an ordinance to amend the Farragut zoning ordinance by rezoning a portion of parcel 116.01, tax map 130, north of Farragut Commons and Chapel Point from R2 and FF. Is that FF or FPD?
FPD.
FPD to R4 and FPD 8.63 acres. Diversified Holdings applicant.
This request on second reading involves the portion of this property that is in yellow. It's currently zoned R2, general single-family residential. They're requesting to rezone it to attached single-family. This was presented to the Planning Commission in December, and they looked at this portion of the property in relation to the request and felt like the R4 was more reasonable than the R2 because of it's adjacent to the interstate to the north. It's surrounded by R4 development to the west and south. Then it has regional commercial actually to the east. So they felt like the request was reasonable, and it is also consistent with the land use plan, which specifies this entire property, except for the commercial portion, to be medium density residential, which is consistent with the R4. So the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Ordinance 16-26, and it was approved on first reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance since first reading, and staff recommends approval of Ordinance 16-26 on second reading.
Make a motion to approve Ordinance 16-26 on the second reading.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Second one is first reading, ordinance 17-01, an ordinance to amend the text of the Farragut Municipal Code by amending Title 8, Alcoholic Beverages, Chapter 2, Beer, Section 8-21-8-4A, to amend the maximum square footage for Class 4 for I'm losing my place.
Premise tavern permit.
On-premise tavern permit, yes, okay.
Yes, sir.
The casual pint is the applicant.
Yes, sir. In May 2014, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen amended the beer ordinance within the municipal code. It included in the amendment was the addition of the Class 4 on-premise tavern permit, which was for establishments whose primary business is to be the sale of the beer to be consumed on the premises. And the details of that ordinance are in your packet. The Casual Pint had requested this change in the permitted usage to have the ability to open a location in Farragut. During the process, the board assigned a maximum square footage requirement and based it on the space that the Casual Pint was interested in occupying. Since the adoption of the new code, the following have a Class 4 permit, and there was only 3 permits for that class. It's the Casual Pint, Mind Your P's and Q's, and Water Into One. Both Mind Your P's and Q's and Water Into One have a food prep area within their designated spaces. The Casual Pint is requesting a text amendment to the Bureau ordinance to change from maximum square footage from 3,000 to 4,500 square feet. The business owner would like to utilize the additional square footage beside the current occupied space for a food prep area and storage. Staff has discussed the requested square footage with the applicant. An additional 600 square feet would be used for a prep area and the remaining space be utilized for storage, and a door would be constructed on the adjoining wall to combine the spaces. And Mr. Pat O'Brien with Casual Pint is here tonight for questions.
Okay. Questions for the applicant?
No.
I had a few comments. I'm a little concerned about 4,500 square feet. That makes me uneasy. I can't really put, it sounds like more restaurant size than tavern size. So I'm comfortable with 3,500 square feet, but I know that you have another area that you're planning to use as storage.
My name is Pat O'Brien. I'm at 12800 High Oak Road, Farragut, and I'm the owner of the Casual Pint. The reason we put the extra 1,500 in was, and in talking to Ms. Myers, the space next door to us that is owned through Southeastern Development Association. They have offered that to me to use. It's empty space. It was leftover space in the shopping center. It's not going to be built out. There's no services to it. It's 1,337 square feet. It is unfinished with nothing in it except for storage of old materials. I put the 1,500 on there just so that if I was given use of the space, which the vast majority will still be just like it is now if you go over there, it's just going to be a storage room, that it would not affect my beer permit. So that's the only reason that amount was put in there. The actual amount of the use of, that will become a usable room, which will be a food prep room, is no more than 600 square feet, and maybe, I was told yesterday that the engineer says that I can use current HVAC for 500 to 600 square feet. It's not that I need that much space, it's just how much space my utilities can handle. So we're going to hopefully do something in the 400 to 500 square foot range for the food prep and storage inside one room. So basically just put a door in the back of my storage room that I have now behind the bar, and then we'll have this food prep room. So the final square footage is going to be based somewhere in that 400 to 500.
So a total of maybe 3,500.
3,500 probably right in there. But see, I just didn't want anything to affect me, because if I'm given this document that says I have use of the whole space, if you see what I'm saying, even though I'm not using it for anything other than it's going to be just unfinished storage room, that I don't want it to affect the beer permit. So that's why.
Through us or through?
Through
Okay.
you.
All right.
So that's the only reason for asking for that. I don't want there to be some ambiguity saying, well, he has use of, it's unfinished space, and we're going to count that as square footage of his store. That's what I'm getting at.
Do we have a way to word it in our ordinance so that we limit it to 3,500, but that he can use this storage space as long as it's not finished out? Is there a way to?
I'm not completely sure.
I'm not either. I think we would need to get with code officials to find out how that actually works in the building code, because I
Okay.
don't want to say something tonight and be completely inaccurate in the way it's determined. So
Well,
I
don't
think
know
we
how
need to get with them and determine
I don't know how
that.
the rest of the board feels about this. Is this something that's concerning to anyone else?
Well, I wonder why we have, what is the reasoning behind a 3,000 square foot limit? What's the magic, how did that magic number come to be?
The 3,000 square feet actually came from the Casual Pint. When they were the original ones who had requested this additional permitting for a beer permit because originally we only had, you had a 60-40 for a restaurant. Well, they didn't qualify for that. They didn't want to do food sales, and it would have to be a larger space. So what we did, this was the space they were looking at, and it was approximately 3,000 square feet. And the board at the time didn't want it to end up being a big club, a big party place. They wanted to make it very, I guess, smaller, more intimate type areas, and so that's where that came from. So it's no magical number. And then the other two we have.
So what did the ordinance read before that?
Nothing was allowed for a tavern. You had to have a restaurant to sell any kind of beer.
Okay. So this was a new classification.
This was new classification, and you could not consume it on premises prior to this ordinance without having a restaurant where you have 60% food to 40% beer sales. And then the Mind Your P's and Q's is around 1,900 square feet, and Water into Wine is at right at 2,100 square feet.
So what would be involved in just changing them from a class 4 to what's the next classification?
The next class would be a restaurant, which means their main business would have to be selling food, which is 60% food to 40% beer, which I would assume you have to put in a full-blown kitchen and expand your seating. And he's just asking for a food prep area. And my only concern about the storage, and I'll have to clarify this with Dan and John, the codes officials, but I think if he occupies the space for any kind of storage or even just a food prep area, he has to finish out the fire-rated walls in between the spaces.
Yep.
Because on one side it's finished space on his side that has the sheetrock, and the other side is not sheetrocked yet, but I think he would have to finish that out.
Once you occupy that space.
Because you're occupying the space, whether it's for storage or not.
Okay.
But that
doesn't enter into our code language our ordinance language that enters into how he uses the building. Am I correct?
Well, that was something Dan and I talked about is, you have an adjoining door to this space. Mm-hmm. They actually had to cut off, there's a little portion at the back of his current space that they had to cut off because it put him over the 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
So you kind of go back to the point of, even though he's using it for storage, is that still considered he's occupying the space within Casual Pine?
And I may not get, this is the unusual thing, I don't have the agreement in hand from the owner of the building. They're pending this.
Okay.
So I think his intent is he is going to keep ownership, as it were, of all the unfinished part and give me ownership of part of it to build a prep room. And what we're talking about is not a full-blown kitchen. Right. Casual Pine has gone into this idea of frozen, rapid heat-up frozen appetizers. So it's like 8 or 9 items. It's a convection oven the size of this lectern with a freezer, a refrigerator area. So 90 seconds to prepare. So we are not having a hood, fryers, any of that. And we do need some more storage because of just the kegs and things like that. So having a nice room, I asked the architects who are planning the Casual Pints as they build them around the country, and they're doing at least 300 square feet just for the kitchen piece. So the thought is if we do 300 plus a little bit extra for our storage for us, I can keep it within that room, potentially all of it. The other thing I just want to let you know is I've had requests from 2 businesses who have been working with me to see if I could be their commissary kitchen. And by being a commissary kitchen, that means they would be Farragut registered businesses, and that's Wood Oven Eats out of Lenore City and Forks on the Road food truck out of Knoxville. The 2 owners have asked that if I do get this, could they use that as their commissary kitchen, and they would register in the town of Farragut as businesses. And I'm willing to let them do it. I'm not looking at it as a money-making thing for me. I'm doing it because they've been very good to me and helping me, and if I can help them, that's what I want to do. So they would have use of the prep area in the mornings before we would open. We open at noon. They could use the prep area to prep their things, and they go do lunches and dinners around the area is what they do. So one's pizza and the other does sliders and wings and some other things.
And I've not talked to Pat about this, but Dan and John and I we had met yesterday to kind of go over a couple of little things. Another thought that we had that I haven't shared with Pat yet is maybe to go ahead and finish off that whole space and put it under another name under his DBA as a commissary or casual plant catering or whatever it is, and their adjoining door would be a fire-rated door that when the alarms, like a fire alarm went off, it would automatically close. And so you actually have two separate businesses, but you're just utilizing that kitchen to service that space. So we had actually, Dan and I had actually talked about that, because that may help with the square footage, and it may help with, them having, I guess, and I don't know have you checked with the health department about
Yeah, I've already
using
checked with
the
them.
commissary
Yeah,
stuff?
they actually said it's fine.
So
and-
that may be a way to.
I mean, we're looking at the square footage we're adding. We're not adding anything to the, there's no more seating, nothing else. It's just,
Right.
Well, I'm
one
not, and
room,
I,
so.
to be clear, this is not necessarily about your business, but going forward, if another one comes in, do we want a 4,500 square foot? Because that doesn't sound intimate to me. That's my concern, is that it's growing too big. And I have to say this, I really appreciate you did the heavy lifting to bring this here, and we have 3 of them in town, and you guys have 3 distinct personalities, and I think it really brings something to our town. So I appreciate that. I do have a kind of a wrench to throw into it, because I'm suggesting that with this ordinance change, I would like to have a minimum food sales put into it, just like 12.5% or something that encourages that we have some food sales. The town of Farragut residents have spoken that they want some food sales in their taverns. I don't know how that works with that. Sounds like it could possibly be an accounting thing.
I'm not going to have percentage sales. Talking to the other casual pints, it's not going to be that much. It's just a small thing to offer our patrons. I don't know that I'm going to hit that. So if you put that in there, I may not be able to meet it.
Well, that's what my question is. I don't want to put it at a number that's not sustainable or not achievable. I don't want it at a number that you're basically, it would encourage a future business just to have popcorn and pretzels. Mm-hmm. But it is clear that we need some kind of, I think we do, from a point of view of looking out, the beer people, the people that wanted to brew beer came in, they probably looked at our tavern ordinance and from that decided, hey, we have this, they're not requiring food, then we can come in and we can do that. And at the MPC level, when we talked about that, we were all very insistent, you need to have food sales. If you're going to be brewing beer and you're going to have a tasting room, you need to have food sales. So I'm not tied to a particular percentage of food sales, but it needs to be something that encourages, like what you're doing. It sounds fine to me. It's not pretzels and popcorn.
No,
and I'm not
it's
trying to put you over a barrel, but it's more going forward. I don't want any more taverns that aren't serving food, because it's not going to work in the town of Farragut.
I mean, you already have the 3 that are in business, and the other 2 do some small food, and we would be adding to that. But ours is, again, it's like 8 items. It's pretzel and beer cheese. It's going to be a flatbread. It's going to be wings. These are prepared food from Reinhardt Food Service that we would be doing. So it's going to be, and they're very inexpensive. So compared to what I sell otherwise, I don't think, again, if you put a percentage on it, I'm going to have a difficult time with any percentage. Again, I don't know what it's going to be. I literally don't know.
What are the other casual? Because I know in Chattanooga has they're requiring a certain percentage of food sales.
Well, in Tennessee, I mean, casual pints growing around the country. Mm-hmm. All the new ones around the country have food. The new one that just opened in Sevierville has food. It varies by jurisdiction. One of the things that allowed us to come in here was Casual Pint as a company. I'm a franchisee. I'm not the company. They thought at first that all stores would be no food. They learned as they went around the country they couldn't meet certain local requirements, so they added it, and now they're recommending if we can retrofit to do so. The other stores in town don't have the space for it. Most of them do not. Luckily, I have the space next to me. So I will probably be the only other one that has the space to do it out of the 8 that are here. So it'll be myself and Sevierville. So I don't know, and the Sevierville store's been open all of 4 weeks. So I don't have a track record to be able to put a percentage. And I'll be honest, I would ask that you, I mean, if you need to change it in the future, I would ask that you would consider it at that point, because it's worked so well with us to this point, as is. I would just like to see if we could get a compromise on the square footage so I can move forward to get the owner of the building to give me rights to the space, because it's like chicken or egg. I have to get you all to approve something, then he will consider giving me the document to have the space, and then I can get the architects to do the formal drawings, which should be done very quickly, and get the contractor to build the one room. So I'd like to do that as soon as possible.
Okay, well, help me understand this, and Alderman Pavlin, you can probably help me with this. Our current ordinance, does it require food sales, our tavern ordinance?
Not at all.
Okay, so why don't we do something like this, say that the maximum tavern size would be 3,000 square feet unless food sales are permitted, in which case it could be up to 3,500 or 4,000 or something like that. Would you be amenable to that?
If it has no percentage, of course, that'd be great.
Okay.
Just something that says we would have food sales.
Something that concerns me is that a lot of this seems like it's banking on the food truck commissary kitchen being part of it, and that's not
Zero.
Okay.
For me, I'm offering that just because they came to me. Tom Gates owns one of them, has been serving pizzas on Wednesdays the last month or so, and he has come to me. He would like to have a place to do prep, and he knows I open at noon. He says, gosh, he says, I do all my food prep like between 8 and 10. So he would like to have a place to utilize. So it has nothing to do with that for me. That's just an icing on the cake, I think, for the town. If he wants to do it, I'm offering, if he wants to have the space, he can come in and do it. I become legally responsible for him under health code for what he does. And that's what I've talked to the Knox County Health Department, that if he does his food prep there, he falls under my health department licensure, as it were, for the commissary kitchen. So if that kitchen has a problem because he did something wrong, I get dinged. He doesn't. That's the one thing. But my main thing is not that. My main thing is to be able to offer, basically appetizer food, which will help our sales, which will help me be a long-term successful business, and that's what I want to try to be.
I have a little trouble putting a percentage on this. I think it's just a little too restrictive in my mind. I understand it's a bad business model not to have food. I think you've realized that now. And I think any business that might come forward as a tavern will probably learn from that. But I just think it's a little restrictive to put a percentage on it. That's my personal opinion. Now, the other thing is I'd like to find out more about the codes and what I don't. Personally, I'm not ready to make a decision today. Mm-hmm. I think we owe it to you to try to give you some more space to help you through this. I'm all for that. But I feel like you, at 4,500 square feet is quite a bit. 35, I don't have a problem with. 36, whatever.
Again, that request is based on whether you would count that empty space that's unused against the beer permit. That's the only reason that number was put in there.
As long as Dr. O'Brien is not utilizing that space at all, then I don't think that's a problem, as long as you have walled off the area to meet codes. So as long as it's walled off to the proper, just like his current Casual Pine is, then he should be fine to utilize the 3,500 square feet. I thought earlier you were talking about using the other space that was leftover space as storage, and I think that would be a problem that we'd have to.
The owner of the building said if his thing was if I needed it to, let's say, store the chairs that are out front during the winter and it's unfinished, he said you could go ahead and throw them in there, but he would still own it. He has done that for other people in the shopping center. Anybody who wants to can open the door, put stuff in there to store for short term, chairs and stuff. So it would not be for my main storage, no. I would have that in my room, is my hope. Now, the only other thing was we talked about the possibility of putting a door from the back of that room out through that space and put a door in the wall so that deliveries could be made then through that door instead of through the back door that comes through the actual bar, bringing our beer in. If that was something that we could do, we would like to consider doing that. So basically it would come through a different door that we would put in the back, come in through that kitchen area and straight into the cooler. That way they wouldn't come at all into the current space.
Until that adjacent space gets leased.
Yeah. Well, no, they can't lease it out. It's unleasable.
It's a funky shaped.
It can't be leased. There's no services in there. There's no electricity, no plumbing, no heating and air in that space. So they basically squeezed down and cut it on two sides and left it. And they've been storing all this construction material in there.
Just like this big pie shape. It's like pie shaped.
No, this one's 17 foot straight. It's 17 feet across and goes straight back, and it's full of construction material. It's got everything you can imagine to do a shopping center. It's all stocked, full in there. There's drywall, there's ceiling tiles, there's lighting fixtures, breaker boxes, door frames. They just stacked everything in there from Blanchard and Calhoun. So,
If the
Well,
board,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if the board wants to act on this tonight and agrees with 3,500 square feet or whatever the number is that you do agree on, I think certainly you could act tonight. It's first reading. I would suggest, though, that Dr. O'Brien get with our code officers in the next few days and try to sit down and make sure what you're wanting to do is going to meet with our codes. And then by the time we get to second reading, then we'll be able to answer all those questions and amend anything if we need to at that point.
Address food sales then. What is the language that, I like what you're proposing, but I'm concerned that this is more for the going future. I want it, any other new taverns that come in, I don't care what size they are, I would, I think they need to be serving food, and we need to make sure that we really need to address this, because we're changing the definition from 5% alcohol by weight to 8% for beer. That's come from the state. So I'm highly concerned with us leaving it with no clarity about whether we require food sales or not at the tavern level.
Well, I think this way our ordinance reads, there cannot be more than 3 taverns in the town, so we're not looking at any more coming in.
But I guess it's more, what if we don't change this now, what happens if one of them goes out of business, another one? It seems to me that this is the time. We're looking at it. This is the time to look at it and address a lesson learned.
Well, I think giving a bonus space if they offer food gives them incentive to offer food. So if we were to modify restriction A or regulation A, requires that it be housed in a building space or tenant space that does not exceed 3,000 gross square feet unless food shall be served, in which case an additional 500 square feet will be allowed for food prep or something to that effect.
Sounds good to me.
That still gives you the opening in the future for someone to have 3,000 square feet and have no food, correct? If the way you're reading that.
Which is how it is right now anyway. Isn't it?
I understand. I'm just.
The other way, another option, if the board wants to look at it, is you can always put a date and time on when any kind of regulation would go into effect. So in other words, you could say that the 3 current taverns that are in place would not have to meet a minimum requirement for food or food requirements at all. But after the effective date of this ordinance, any new tavern permit that is issued would have to have a food minimum requirement or serve food of some kind. You don't have to put a percentage on it, but that's another option for you to not affect the 3 here, but certainly could impact future tavern permittees if they come through.
I actually like that idea, because then
too.
we're and that was the whole. I don't want to bust you. This is about is about looking forward and making sure that we're doing right by our community. I like that idea, and I can certainly embrace that idea. Did we want to set a percentage at that point for going forward? Again, I'm not looking to make it difficult to do business, but we certainly would encourage something more than peanuts and popcorn.
Yeah, we've got to at least have pickled pig's feet and boiled eggs, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, just to give you an idea, we do have another permit that is, the Echelon Bikes has it, and their beer sales can be no more than 5% of their total sales.
Okay.
So that might be something to look at. The thing that I think Mr. O'Brien was getting into, he also has an off-premise beer permit where people can buy it and take it home. So I think that's where he's a little bit different than the other two.
That makes
so
sense.
that would be, I think that's where he's coming from with the 12%, is that all of a sudden he's kind of getting docked for people buying it and taking it home because that's, and then
I had not
of course
thought
then you
about
got to
that.
go, well, what's your percentage of people who buy it in your restaurant? And
Yeah.
then he's going to call me tomorrow and say, just forget it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say, thank you.
Yeah,
But
please help me make this simple
Well,
so
and
that I can
exactly,
do
you're turning
this.
into an accounting nightmare.
Yes.
I
Right.
like, David, what you've proposed. I think that's something to embrace. If we set it at like 10%, is that,
Let me make sure I understand something. The two other locations, I understand one is doing about 12 to 15%.
she's
in
doing,
food.
well, I spoke to her last night and she says she's closer to 20. But if the way David's proposing this would not impact them at all. And P's and Q's is at 30%. My goal at setting a percentage is what I've said. It's just so that they're not saying, oh, well, we're serving beer, pretzels and peanuts, and that should be sufficient.
If we threw out a number of 5%, would you feel comfortable with 5%?
I would ask that what Mr. Smoke proposes would be followed, so that in my case, I don't know what the percent's going to be, and that you do it for future holders of the permit. So if I go out of business when I retire in 20 years or sell it or something, somebody else can then deal with that percentage and deal with that. I don't know. That's my problem. I have no knowledge. I'm going in this kind of blind.
I'll be a fly in the ointment here. If a food truck was to use that as a commissary, your percentages would reflect that. You'd also have storage area for the food truck as far as their particular, as far as the cooler area. I wouldn't think that would be a fair comparison to the other restaurants or anybody else that wanted to come in and
I'm not sure.
put
well,
in
but the food truck storage or their food prep, whatever sales they do, would not run through Casual Pine. They would be a separate entity.
Yeah, they're not my
not
business.
his
They have nothing to do
businesses.
with me. They're just using
They're
the
just
space.
using the space, so it would be a separate entity.
I think we need to word it that way then.
That's how it is under the law and how the health department looks at it.
Yeah.
They're just saying if they walk in the kitchen and do their survey and do the inspection, if, let's say, a commissary user left something out, I get dinged just because he left it out. I have nothing to do with his business. But
So you're taking a risk here.
I am taking a little bit of risk, but I'm not looking to do this as a business, and
Yeah.
I'm not. And these two guys have come to me. It's more relationship, and we may or may not do it, but if they want to, I trust them enough. They all have 100% ratings. That's the other thing I check. They have 100% on their health inspections all the time. So I don't feel bad letting them come in and use that space early in the morning and cut up their vegetables, basically, is what they're going to do, and take them out and go off and do their business. So they are not, I have nothing to do with their business. I'm not a partner, in any way, shape, or form involved with them, if I do it.
Could you review that statement you made earlier? Have you written it down, or I want to make sure I understand it before we go any further?
I would, what I would provide is maybe we add under section 4. This is under the beer ordinance. Let me get the sections right here. Under section 8218, number 4, add an item E at the bottom of that, which basically would say that as of the effective date of this ordinance, any new tavern permit issued would be required to have food sales. And I think that gets you past the 3 that are current. It gives us the next 30 days or so as this ordinance becomes effective, and then moves forward in requiring that they have some kind of food sales. It doesn't say what they have to have. It doesn't say a percentage unless you want to add that. If you want to add a percentage, you can, but it still wouldn't affect the 3 current owners of the businesses that are here.
We could add that at the next second reading.
You can add it tonight as an amendment.
I'm saying the percentage. If we decide we
Yes.
wanted,
Yes, you
we
could.
can make we could put E in now, but then amend it at the second reading.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So we still need to address the size, the square footage. So we need a separate
I wonder if you can say, just simply say 3,500 usable space, or, because, or. There's
Finished,
got to be a finished.
finished.
Yeah, finished space.
Or something. I just want to make sure my permit falls, and that would be fine. That would work for me.
Yeah.
I just want the permit to be legal. And I'm not going to need probably 500. But that would give me what I need, gives me up to it.
I feel comfortable changing it to 3,500 instead of 4,500.
Yeah. So let's figure out, I guess that's something you guys will do the research to make sure that the intent is there, 3,500 finished space, and adding an E, any new tavern permit would be required to have food sales. And I'm going to do a little digging, and I'll have better numbers for you guys next meeting so that we can decide whether we want to have a percentage or not.
And one other change we need to make too is under section 8-206, it's definitions, it's number 5, and this state law has changed. The alcohol content to not be more than, it used to be 5% by weight, now it's 8% by weight. That's on page number 2.
It's now 8%?
It's now 8%.
Are we going to amend them in the chapter 1, 2? There's 102 and
Wherever
10
it falls in there, we'll
Okay.
change it as well.
Okay.
I notice also on page 8, there's a lot of highlighted. Are we changing anything?
That's what we were just talking, that's the section that's the tavern section that we were just discussing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which one were you referencing as to percentage of alcohol content?
It's on page 2. It's under definitions, it's number 5.
Second page in, right here.
Yeah.
Highlighted.
Content has gone from no more than 5% to no more than 8%.
The state of Tennessee has done
State
that.
law.
That's the wine and grocery store law.
High gravity.
Where that came from.
It was the last section that was included in the bill.
All right, so what action are we taking tonight?
I guess we need a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we change the tavern classification to include language under paragraph 4, section A, to say that the building space and/or tenant space that does not exceed 3,500 square feet of finished space, and add a section E to that paragraph that says any new tavern after the approval of this ordinance, any new tavern permit will require food sales.
And changing the definitions from 5% to 8%.
And changing the definitions from 5 to 8 in section 206,
And any
paragraph
other-
5.
And any other section where it's required, because it's required in the chapter right before as well.
Yes, what she said.
I'll second that.
Well done.
Discussion.
Want to drag it out some more?
No, I'm good.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? Thank you very much.
That takes us to town administrator's report.
Mayor, just wanted to show off our new annual report for 2017. We were able to get these printed. They're going to be in everybody's, hopefully, yards here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, delivered to the door. We've got several nonprofits that are delivering those for us. I give a lot of credit all the credit really, to Sue Stool and her staff. She was shorthanded this year during this process to get the annual report out, and she did a great job in getting this prepared. So the front cover this year is the ribbon cutting of McPhee Park splash pad that we did, and so it's just a great report that gives so much information about the town of Farragut for anybody that comes through here. So anyway, that's all I have to report tonight.
To remind everyone that make sure you file your statement of interest before January 31st if you have not done so. And the Technology Gala, Farragut High School Technology Gala is this Saturday.
And thanks to Ms. Pavlin, we are a sponsor for that
Yes.
that event, and they were gracious enough to give us a table for that.
Are we all going?
think
I
a couple
cannot.
of you are.
I have a conflict.
Are you going to be there,
Are
Bob?
we buying seats? I wasn't real clear on how that
No.
works.
No,
They're giving us the table. So we
Well,
don't need
you
to bring
do give
money.
quite a bit to the school every year, yes, sir. So yes, that's correct.
Donate that to the cause, though, if you'd like.
Yeah, I wasn't too clear on that. Okay. I will try to make it. I've got a meeting with an out-of-town client Saturday. We haven't pinned on a time yet.
Okay.
What time is that gala?
Starts at 6:30.
At Rothschild's.
Should not be a
Yes.
problem.
Child.
All right.
It's very well done.
Nice dinner.
Yeah.
We have no town attorney report, right?
Okay, I think we are adjourned.
Here, here.
So anyway, we decided to set it for the first weekend